Hey guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. Today we will see what if Naruto is taken by Itachi. If you enjoy, then please like, share and do comments. 6 years. It had been 6 long years since Naruto had disappeared. Nobody knew where he was, if he was all right or if he was dead. Tsunade didn't want to think he was dead. Naruto was not someone to die so easily, and for all those years, she had never stopped believing he was alive. She had faith in him as the future 6th Hokage. So for 6 years, she sent out rescue missions, but none succeeded. Naruto's friends were all like her. When they weren't in missions or even during them, they tried to find information about him and his location. Sabaku no Gara, the former Shukaku vessel, and Cage of the Sand Village helped them too. He had a debt to Naruto. He was his first friend, always volunteering for everything. Naruto was like that for many people. Even if the inhabitants of Konoha were always horrible with him, he carried on his smile for all the people who were precious to him. He was their sunshine, and for 6 years, this sunshine hadn't shone. So when Jiraiya finally found a hint of his whereabouts, even if it was a small hint, he immediately went to Tsunade to inform her. When she heard this news, even if it wasn't solid, she sent all the volunteers, all of Naruto's old friends who wanted to go. Sakura, Lee, Neji, Tenten, Kiba and Akamaru, Shino, Hinata, Shikamaru, Choji, Ino, Sai, Kakashi and Iruka. Even she went with them. She let Shizune work as her substitute as she went with Jiraiya and the other to verify the information. After 2 days, they finally arrived. It was a gigantic field, covered in green grass. They all looked upset about the fake location. To show her anger, Tsunade hit the ground with her famous iron fist of chakra. Jiraiya put a gentle hand on one of her shoulders and made a little smile. Just when he was about to talk, the ground shook violently and collapsed a few meters in front of them. There was an entrance to a hallway. They all looked at each other, and the 2 Byakugan users activated their bloodline trait. It was like an X-ray, they could see behind walls. They took the lead and all went down the stairs to enter the site. The tunnel led to an old temple, well conserved, even its traps still worked. Thanks to Neji, Hinata and their Byakugan, everyone made it through the temple without injury. After what it seemed like hours, they stood in front of a great door made of iron. A flow of chakra could be felt in it. Tsunade and Sakura looked at each other and without a word, punched it. The door collapsed. They entered the room and waited a few seconds for the dust to disappear so they could see. The room was wrecked. Electric strings were hanging from the ceiling. Medical's instruments were scattered all over the rooms, reduced to scrap metal. Containers in the back of the room were empty or held a corpse. Dry blood ran down the walls and some parts of human limbs lay on the ground. It was a bloody hell and truly difficult to tell what had happened here. Despite the mess, some of the equipments were still in functioning. Jiraiya made his way to one of the containers in the back of the room. It was the largest one, covered in dust and blood. He brushed some of the dust and blood off and froze. Hinata, who was beside him, looked where he did. She opened wide eyes and screamed in terror. All the other rushed where Jiraiya and Hinata were and froze. Sakura, Tenten and Ino covered their mouth with their hands and shivered. Tsunade made her way to Jiraiya and put her hands against the glass. It was Naruto. He floated in the container, eyes closed and half naked. He had an oxygen mask on, few strings hovering around his body attached to needles, and chains holding him down. Bright golden hair, much longer than 6 years ago, floated around his head. The 3 whisker marks on each cheek stood out and his body was thin and pale. Tsunade looked like she was about to cry when Jiraiya came back to reality and showed her the monitors. Even though he looked dead, the heart monitor beeped evenly. Naruto was alive. Her little Naruto was still alive. She had been right to believe in him all those years, even if she didn't know what had happened to him. There wasn't a minute to lost, they had to get him out of the container. She broke the glass, and while the thick liquid spread, Jiraiya caught Naruto's body before it fell to the floor. Tsunade and Sakura, who had stopped shivering, removed the needles, chains and oxygen mask. Iruka found them a blanket and they wrapped Naruto in its warmth. Neji, Shino, Shikamaru, Sai, said Tsunade. Find all the files in here. I want to know who they are and what they did to Naruto. Go. Hi, Hokage-sama. And all 4 started their investigations. Ino, Kiba, Hinata, Tenten, Choji, Lee, make the area as secure. Hi, they disappeared through the door. Kakashi, Sakura, I don't want to take the corpses back, we don't know if they carry illness or not, so be careful and try to do what you can do for them. I can't give you much time, we have to get back to Konoha quickly. I'm worried about Naruto. We'll do what we can. They went to the other containers. Naruto was unconscious in Tsunade's arms. Tsunade relaxed a little and put a gentle smile on her lips. She was worried but also very happy to have finally him back by her side. She slowly stroked his golden hair and moved a few locks from his face so she could see his eyes. Naruto had opened his eyes. She stared at those beautiful eyes that shone like sapphires. But even if they shone like jewels, they were empty. They didn't have his mischievous light. It was like there was no soul in this body. Naruto stared at her without blinking. Jiraiya saw very well that sadness in her eyes. He was like her. He missed the little monkey. When Tsunade looked into Naruto's eyes, she was scared that he will never be the same again. Her worries were pushed aside when Ino came running. She stopped at the door and didn't take the time to catch her breath. Tsunade-sama, Akatsuki is attacking us. We have to run. Quickly, screamed Ino. Go find others and tell them to regroup here. Tell Shikamaru to think of a way to escape. Tsunade looked at Jiraiya who had taken Naruto in his arms. She looked at him and swore to herself that she will never let the Akatsuki lay a hand on him. Now that she had found him, there was no way that she let him go again, even if it cost her life. The other came back quickly, some trying to catch their breath. Choji put the doors back on their hinges and closed them to slow down the Akatsuki. Everyone looked at Tsunade who was listening to Shikamaru. Thanks to Neji's Byakugan, we found some hidden papers. They were plans. It seems that there are a few passages that will lead us far from here. We need to find the tunnel that splits into 5. I think it's by one of them that the people who were here escaped, but we don't know why they left their experiments. We have found other documents but we haven't read them yet. We'll read them another time. Priority is to find the tunnel. Search for it. They all went to search. The door was shivering from the efforts of the Akatsuki. Choji was bracing it the best he could, but he wouldn't last long. Hinata discovered the passage behind a wall smeared with blood and discreetly told the others. They all went in the passage and just when Choji joined them, the door burst open to let in 9 members of the Akatsuki. The hidden door was closed and they all ran as silently as possible, Jiraiya carrying Naruto who was still staring into space. They made their way to the 5 tunnels and asked themselves silently which one would be safest. There was no time to lose, even if they all suppressed chakra, it would not take long for the Akatsuki to find them. If Naruto hadn't been in this state, they would have fought but Naruto was their priority and they didn't have the right to risk their friend's security, especially now that they had finally found him after 6 long years. They finally decided to all take a different path to prevent an all-out battle. If they were in groups, the Akatsuki would have to split as well. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Kakashi went with Naruto into the first tunnel. Ino, Shikamaru, Choji and Iruka took the second, Neji, Tenten, Lee and Sakura in the third, Kiba and Akamaru, with Hinata, Shino and Sai in the fourth. Shino made clones with his bugs and sent them in the last one. It didn't take long for the Akatsuki to find the passage and follow them, but when they arrived at the split they couldn't tell which tunnel Naruto had taken. Eventually they decided to go in groups even if they knew that it was what Tsunade had wanted. They didn't have time to think about that. Their priority was the Kyuubi no Kitsune and Naruto. Itachi and Kisame went to the passage that Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi and Naruto had taken. Sasori and Deidara went the same way as Ino, Shikamaru, Choji and Iruka. Hidan and Kakuzu took the same as Neji, Tenten, Lee and Sakura. Tobi and Zetsu followed Kiba and Akamaru, Hinata, Shino and Sai. Pain took the last passage, following Shino's bug clones. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi and Naruto made their way to the exit quickly. They felt 2 different chakra signatures following them. They were forced to stop when they found themselves in front of Orochimaru and Kabuto. This can't get any worse, swore Tsunade. What have we here? The little Kitsune who went missing 6 years ago. It's a miracle that he's still alive, said Orochimaru looking at Naruto in Jiraiya's arms. Did you do this to him, Orochimaru? Asked Jiraiya angrily. No, I didn't do anything to him. But surely will in the near future. I won't let you. You will never lay a finger on him. Snapped Tsunade. Then, tell me where Sasuke-kun is. Asked Orochimaru. How should we know where he is? He was with you, wasn't he? Replied a confused Kakashi. Sasuke-kun ran away after trying to kill Orochimaru-sama. Answered Kabuto. So I need someone to lure him to me. Now that you have found Naruto-kun, I have the perfect person for the job. Why Naruto? He has nothing to do with Sasuke anymore. The Uchiha bastard abandoned him. He nearly killed him. Why do you think that if you have Naruto, Sasuke will come back to you? Tsunade snorted. Sasuke-kun is searching for his brother to kill him and he knows that he need Naruto-kun to do that. Itachi is searching for Naruto to take the Kyuubi no Kitsune. If I have Naruto-kun, Sasuke-kun will come to get him and Itachi will follow. I'll have 2 Sharingan users instead of 1. You're really an idiot if you think things will just turn the way you want them, Orochimaru. Tsunade, Jiraiya, Kakashi, Orochimaru and Kabuto froze. They hadn't felt the Akatsuki's chakra at all. The situation wasn't good. Now they had 2 Akatsuki members behind them and Orochimaru and his sidekick in front of them. Jiraiya strengthened his grip on Naruto's body and turned his back to Orochimaru. To him, Akatsuki were worse. Naruto was in the same state as he had been since he was removed from his container. He was awake but his eyes were empty. He had no idea of what was happening around him. The truth was that he was asleep in his mind. He was inside the cage with Kyuubi sleeping. Kyuubi had his 9 tails around him, wanting to keep him warm and unharmed. Kyuubi was conscious and knew what was happening outside their cage, but he didn't want to take over Naruto's body while he was in this state. He didn't want to hurt him even more than he had already been because of him. Don't be afraid, kid. They will protect you and you will be fine, said the Kitsune. Naruto didn't answer. Outside the cage, the atmosphere was heavy. They didn't know how to escape and there was no way that they handed over Naruto to save their own lives. Jiraiya handed Naruto to Tsunade and took a fighting stance just like Kakashi. Tsunade, too, wanted to fight but she had seen what Jiraiya had in mind. Suddenly, there were multiple explosions. Clouds of thick black smoke appeared and hit each other. Jiraiya took the opportunity to summon one of his frogs. All 3 of them with Naruto went inside of its mouth and it disappeared in the smoke. Itachi and Kisame found themselves alone in front of Orochimaru and Kabuto. They stared at each other for a few seconds before the 2 Akatsuki disappeared, Itachi in a flock of ravens and Kisame in a cloud of smoke. They had no time to play with Orochimaru. They had to find Naruto again. The frog reappeared before a cave and everyone exited the frog's mouth and made their way inside. Everyone was oddly unharmed. What happened? Asked Tsunade, putting down Naruto's body. When they saw that Naruto wasn't with us, the Akatsuki disappeared. They just said that they would be back soon, said Neji. Tsunade sighed. There really was something fishy about this and with the young Uchiha and Orochimaru after Naruto, the situation stank. They stayed quiet for a while before Shikamaru finally broke the silence. He explained to them his plan to get back to Konoha with as little risk as possible and they took off. They were very careful not to be seen for the 3 days of travel. When they were arrived, a welcoming committee was waiting for them. Shizune, Gaara, Temari and Kankuro stood at the gate. When Shikamaru, Neji, Sai and Lee broke the formation, they all saw Naruto's body in Tsunade's arms. She had refused to let go of him even for a second. Naruto had closed his eyes again and seemed to be asleep, but they knew that this was a sleep which he may never wake from. Shizune, prepare the operation room, quickly. We don't have time to lose, ordered Tsunade. Hi, Tsunade-sama. She answered, before disappeared in a poof of smoke. Tsunade, Sakura, Hinata and Naruto quickly made their way to the Hokage's tower. Shikamaru and Neji gave the documents to Kakashi and Iruka before they also disappeared in smoke, going to decode them. Jiraiya stayed with the nins from Sand to explain what had happened. They were speechless, shocked by what they had learned. Naruto was on an operating table. Tsunade, Sakura, Shizune and Hinata were wearing white doctor's robes. Hinata and Neji had used their Byakugan to see if something was wrong with Naruto's body. It appeared there was something inside of his neck, just under the skin. It was a collar that was absorbing his chakra but not Kyuubi's. This had shocked Tsunade. If Kyuubi's chakra wasn't absorbed, why hadn't he taken over Naruto's body? It had been a long operation. Just removing the collar had taken 5 hours. Tsunade had never done an operation like this before. She had to open Naruto's neck without cut any nerves or arteries. She hadn't wanted to think of how they had implanted it, but, thanks to Hinata's Byakugan, she had succeeded and taken off the collar. Sakura immediately took care of the rest, using her medical jutsu. After 15 minutes, Naruto's neck was intact with no scars. He was sent to a guarded room where Tsunade stayed close to him all night long. She was awoken by Jiraiya. "How's he?" Sakura, Hinata and Shizune told us about the operation. "Did he open his eyes?" he asked. "No, he didn't wake up, I don't know why," she answered. "It's because he hasn't recovered all of his chakra yet." They all faced the bed where a deep voice rose. Naruto had opened his eyes, but it wasn't blue eyes that stared at them, it was red ones. Tsunade stood up and looked at the body that had taken a sitting position. "How is it possible that you are taking to us?" Jiraiya asked. "It's simple really, if I want I can take Kit's body over. I have always had the ability to talk to him, that's why he sometimes seemed absent." "Why did you take it over now? Why not before? You could have saved him from those people," accused an angry Sakura. "If I had taken over his body before, I could have killed him." "You could have killed him? And now, you're not killing him right now?" said Shizune. "It's not a full takeover. I only speak to you, it's not like I'm using my chakra to fight. I have no intention to do that. This way, I won't hurt him. Why do you care so much for him? What do you intend to do? You've practically killed him the few times you released your chakra," screamed Sakura. "You don't know anything, so shut up. It's not like I'm happy to come out now. If I was listening to myself, I would never have come out. But I did it for Kit. So shut up and let me talk," Kyuubi said, raising his voice. "Why do you care about him? You're a demon, a beast, so why do you want to protect him?" Sakura screamed back. "And who do you think was healing him when he went back to his small apartment covered in bruises, cut and blood? Who? You don't know what he had suffered because of me. You don't know what children who have been cursed with being demons' vessels go through. So shut up, little girl. If you think that people were just looking at him badly, whispering insults when he passed them, you're totally wrong. Why not ask the former Shukaku vessel what he went through?" They all looked at Gaara, who said nothing. He knew too well what Naruto went by because he had lived the same. Naruto had saved him from that darkness and he had never done anything to thank him. He stayed quiet, just looking at Naruto's body. He had nothing to say, Kyuubi would expose all of it. But he never told anyone about what was happening to him. He was always smiling like an idiot. "How could we have known about something like that?" Shikamaru said. "It's because he didn't want his friends to pity him. He had worked so hard to be able to obtain what he wanted that he didn't want his friends to look at him with pity. He put his smile on and never cried before anyone. He always did stupid things to attract attention. It's the reason he wants to become Hokage. He wants to be able to protect all his precious people." Silence took his place for what it seemed hours when Tsunade finally broke it. They all looked at her and at Kyuubi. "What have they done to him? Who are they? Can you tell us?" she asked seriously. She didn't need any more words from Kyuubi to understand how much he loved Naruto. She didn't say anything or ask why because she wanted to be alone when she asked the kitsune about this fatherly protection. "I can't tell you who they were because I don't know either, but I can told you what they have done to him." "Then tell us," Jiraiya said. Kyuubi took a breath and thought about what to say. He finally decided to tell them frankly, even if it was not the nicest narrative. "You have to know first that they kidnapped Naruto because I was inside him. At first, they wanted to transplant some of my chakra to other people's body to see how they would react to it. They wanted to sell it as a drug, but people began to go crazy and they were killed. It had taken 2 years of their time but ended up as a big, fat failure. After that, one of the scientists had an idea. If they couldn't create a drug that could produce super ninjas with great amount of chakra, they would create children and raise them like people from the root were. So they began to search for women in need of money. They offered them a great amount and they let them do what they wanted. At first, they only took ova from them, but they were nothing but failures again and again, so they decided to try it with a real mother carrying the child. It went well at first, but at the 6th month, 4 of the 5 mothers died. Their stomach exploded. After 3 more years of work, it was another failure. I thought that they would leave Naruto alone. If they had, I would have healed him and he would have come back, but they didn't. Some of them were killed because they wanted to stop the project. Kyuubi stopped to leave them the time to understand what he had said. The continuation will not please them at all, but he had to tell them what will happen in the not-so-distant future. The 3 scientists that remained finally found, 3 months ago, the solution. I had hoped that they would never discover it. What? Tsunade asked with apprehension. Demons' vessels, they can carry children, without dying. When they learned that, they decided to combine DNA. As Naruto was carrying me, the child will automatically have my DNA and his, but they went crazy. They created artificial sperm with the Uchiha's DNA. I don't know how they obtained it, but they did. When they had finished enough of it, they injected it inside of Naruto. 2 months went by and it was a success. Naruto was pregnant with twins. But, wait, you said Uchiha's DNA. Is it Sasuke's DNA or? It's Itachi's. Kyuubi interrupted Shizune impatiently. What happened after? Tsunade looked like she was about to destroy all around her. I told you about the surrogate mothers. One of them was still alive and she gave birth to 1 child. Just when they learned that Naruto was pregnant, the child, who had been taking drugs to accelerate growth, went crazy. He saw Naruto in a container. Because he saw Naruto as his mother, he was angry that his mother was in this state. He killed all the people who were there but the 3 scientists. They escaped. He went after them. You arrived 2 weeks after the massacre. What about the child's real mother? Asked a pale Hinata. She's dead. Only a demon's vessel can give birth to child with demonic chakra without dying. A demon child is not like a human child. When they are born, demons' children are in their animal body. When Naruto's children are born, they will be little fox kids. They will obtain their human body 2 days after their birth. They have the ability to change back to their fox form. Anything else that we need to know? Jiraiya asked. One last thing. When Naruto gives birth, he will become part demon. He won't have the power to change into the full form of a fox, but he will have 9 tail and ears. With them, he will be able to summon me outside his body or use my chakra anytime he wants. Thanks to that, Akatsuki will never be able to take me away from him. If they kill him, they kill me. I have to leave now, if not, Naruto's chakra will never recover. I'll talk to you when he wakes up. He'll play the intermediary between us if you ever have questions. With those last words, Naruto's eyes closed again and Tsunade lay Naruto's body down and covered it with a blanket. They were all quiet. Nobody knew what to say about what they had heard. Neji looked at Gaara and asked with a low voice. Is it true, what he says? Are demons' vessels able to give birth? All he said about demon's vessel are true. But as a former demon's vessel, I don't know if I can give birth or not yet. Before, I knew I was able, but now, I don't know. Perhaps Kyuubi will know, answered Gaara. You seem upset about something. What is it? Naruto's future. Because of all of us, he had been able to not mind people's looks, but now, he's pregnant. What will happen to him when they discover it? You don't know what we went through. What I fear is what he will have to go through again. Gaara said. There was no answer for that. Everyone but Tsunade and Jiraiya left the room. Tsunade sat back on the chair. Jiraiya took another and sat by her side. He looked at Tsunade, who was holding Naruto's hand. You're worried as well, aren't you? About his future? He asked. I won't let them hurt him. I don't know what he went through and I won't ask him to tell me, but I will not let them do it again. He has the right to be happy. I want him to be happy. She answered. You're right, he will have us by his side. After all, he is like our grandson, isn't he, Tsunade? He said, smiling brightly. Even if I have to give up on the post of Hokage, I will never leave him alone. He's our family, but I am too young to be great-grandmother. She said with a little laugh. We have 4 months to make up our minds. He's going to have to find a new house. His apartment is too small for 3 people. Yes, we will help him as much as we can. They said no more and stayed there, looking at Naruto's sleeping face. All people who had left the room were now heading somewhere to think about what they have just learned. It was the worst thing that could have been done to him. As if it was not enough to have the Akatsuki and Orochimaru and Sasuke after him, now he was pregnant with Itachi's twins. It was really the worst situation. Even if they didn't speak before going their ways, they were all thinking the same thing. They needed to protect their friend. He had protected them so many times, now was the time to pay him back and prove their friendship. Gaara went to the room that had been prepared for him as the case cage, going to the window to stare at the sky that reminded him of the eyes of his best friend. He was worried, but worried wasn't the right word. It was beyond that. Why do people have to treat others like guinea pigs? He had to suffer that once upon a time. Now that he was Cage, he didn't, but his friend was not like him. He had been kidnapped for 6 long years and had to suffer because of what he had inside him, something that he had never asked for. He didn't have a choice. The 4th Hokage had sealed a monster inside of him, and because of that he had always lived like a monster. But he was so strong, he never showed any negative emotions. Gaara was in so deep thought that he didn't hear Neji enter his room. He only realized when he felt a hand on his left shoulder. He turned his head and found Neji, his lover. During those 6 years, many things had changed. Gaara and Neji had declared their love for each other and were now together. He stared at his lover's eyes with his green ones and tried to smile a little, but he didn't succeed. He had no will to smile. He would only regain his smile when Naruto awoke. He took Neji in his arms and held him tight to feel him close to him. His love, too, was because of Naruto. He missed their long discussions, even if it only ended by fights. But Naruto was the only one to understand him because they were so alike. He had been a demon's vessel, but Naruto loved people for what they were and not for what they have. Neji held him back. He needed him, but he also needed Naruto to wake up soon. He couldn't take anymore. His lover hadn't smiled for 6 years now. But it wasn't just Gaara, there were so many other people. He was Konoha's sunshine for so many of his comrades, and the sun had been taken away for 6 long years. Now he was back, but would he be the same? Would they be able to see his bright smile again? He was an idiot, but he was an innocent and pure idiot who was loved by many despite Kyuubi. They all knew that he was not a monster, only a container. Neji and Gaara didn't say anything for a moment. They simply held each other and finally, they kissed. Since he had seen Naruto being carried by Jiraiya, Itachi couldn't get Naruto out of his mind. What have they done to him? He wasn't the only one asking himself this question. Kisame was having the same thoughts. Only they had seen Naruto and they couldn't understand why they were so depressed. After all, they were enemies. They wanted to capture him and take the Kyuubi no Kitsune inside of him. But the truth was something else. Itachi was in his room, he was sat on his bed, in his mind, seeing Naruto's face again and again. Those bright blue eyes that seemed so dead. They shone, but not like they used to. He wanted to see them again, bright and childish. It was all he could think about. For the past 6 years, he had only wanted to see him. His smiling face, his angry face, his sleeping face. But someone had taken all of that away, and even he hadn't been able to find where they had taken him. What the point to possess the Sharingan if it was of no use when he most needed it? But even if he was depressed for his own reasons, he had learned something from Orochimaru's mouth. His brother was also searching for Naruto. Why did Sasuke wanted to involve Naruto in his quest for him? After all, he had run away from Konoha, abandoning him. Now, why did he need him? Itachi was a genius, but this was far from his understanding. He didn't understand his little brother anymore, and he didn't want to understand him. They were so different from each other. Itachi rose from his bed and looked through the window at the sky that reminded him of Naruto's eyes. But it was not as beautiful as them. There was nothing in the whole world that could surpass the blonde's eyes. No, there was nobody like Naruto. Sure, there were other blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys, but none quite like him. He was unique. Itachi stayed there unmoving, looking at the blue sky and thinking of a blonde boy. Sasuke wasn't aware of Naruto's rescue. He was hiding with his team, the people he was using to reach his goals. Karen, Suigetsu and Jugo were only following him to benefit themselves. Karen because she was a Sasuke fan, Suigetsu because he wanted to take Samahata from Kisame, Jugo because he needed someone to stop him from his crisis. Sasuke had only one mission. He would kill his brother and everything would be fine. He had decided to sacrifice his former best friend to reach his goal. He didn't know that Naruto had been kidnapped years ago. Orochimaru never told him. The Snake Man was afraid that if his little vessel learned the news, he would go to search for Naruto. So Sasuke was ignorant. He thought that his former comrade had finally given up on him. He was angry. He wanted Naruto to follow him, but Sasuke didn't know why, so he had decided to take his revenge on Naruto and his brother in the same way, killing them. 2 days after his operation, Naruto awoke. When he opened his blue eyes, he found Tsunade, Jiraiya and Gaara next to his bed. He smiled brightly and tears began to run from his eyes. This smile that had been needed for so long was now back, even if tears had joined it. Tsunade couldn't restrain herself and cried, taking him in her arms to hold him. Naruto didn't complain at all. He held her back, crying into her shirt. They stayed like that for 30 minutes and it only was because of Jiraiya that Tsunade finally let go. He was his turn now, to hug him. When he did, he felt what Tsunade had. Naruto was thin as a rail and all of his muscle had disappeared with years of inactivity. He seemed like a child who needed protection and love. When he let him go, Gaara stood beside the bed and looked at him without knowing what to do. It was not in his nature to hold someone other than his lover but he did it. 6 long years without Naruto was too much. Gaara hugged him and Naruto hugged him back, smiling gently, tears still trailing on his cheeks. "Naruto, we're so sorry," began Tsunade. "No, don't apologize. I don't need any excuses. I know that you did all you could. I believed in you, Ba-chan. I knew that one day you would come to save me. It doesn't matter how many years it took. I'm finally back at home thanks to you. Thank you for searching for me all those years," said Naruto, smiling brightly. They couldn't answer that. They were just so happy that he was back. He seemed to be the same, smiling, Naruto, but he wasn't. He was pregnant. Was he aware of it? Tsunade didn't know how to ask him but just when she was about to, the door opened. All the others who had rescued Naruto were there. Sakura ran to the bed and hugged him tightly when she saw he was awake. Naruto nearly fell from the bed but held her too. In the past, it was his dream to hold her but now, she was just his friend and it only seemed right to hold her like that. "Okari Nasai, Naruto-kun," said the shy Hinata. "Thank you, Hinata-chan. It's thanks to you that I'm back. I don't know how to thank you," he said back. "We don't need thanks from you. We're so sorry we took so long," began Kiba. "Shut up. I don't want any apologizes from you guys. I know that like Ba-chan and Jiraiya, you did all you could to find me. I don't need anything else. So please, all of you, stop apologizing, I'm begging you," Naruto said. He looked at them seriously and smiled. He really didn't need their apologies. He only wanted things to go back to like they were before but he knew that that was impossible. Things had changed, he had changed. He hadn't had the choice, he was forced to change and now, he was pregnant. He only had 4 months left. Even if it didn't show on his body yet, he carried 2 little children. They were his and those of a man who had destroyed his former best friend's life. Naruto went quiet. Yes, Sasuke had destroyed him, and it had been only after their last encounter that Naruto understood his feelings. All that time, he had loved Sasuke as more than a best friend. He had never told him and now, it was too late. His feelings for him died when Kyuubi told him he was pregnant with Sasuke's older brother's children. Kyuubi had explained to him what the scientists had done and his entire universe had fallen into pieces. He was all alone to raise his children now. He would have a family, what he had always wanted but alone. No, he wasn't alone. Naruto understood when he looked around him. He wasn't alone anymore. He had many friends, a grandmother and a grandfather, and Kyuubi who was like a father to him. He was not alone. At that thought Naruto smiled brightly like he used to and his stomach growled. There was a silence and then they all laughed like children. It seemed like so long since the last time they had laughed like this. "How about we take you to ramen? Ichiraku will be very happy to see his best costumer again after all this time," offered Choji. "Ramen? I really want to but I don't know if it would be good for the kids." Kyuubi said to ask you what was healthy for them. He said looking at Tsunade. I think 1 or 2 bowls won't hurt them," she said with a loving smile. Naruto grinned. He was so happy. Even if it was only 2 bowls, he was going to eat ramen again after 6 years. Just when he was about to stand, he remembered. He only had his clothes from the hospital. He couldn't go in these. He looked around him and Iruka gave him a bag with his happy smile. Naruto took it and smiled back. He went in the bathroom and took a quick shower, putting on his new clothes before realizing that they were too big. He looked at himself in the mirror. He wasn't like 6 years ago. Now he was thin, his hair was longer and he looked more mature. Naruto washed his face again and put a smile on. He went back to his friends and all took off. They went to Ichiraku who cried in happiness when he saw Naruto sitting before him. He gave him the biggest bowl of ramen that he had ever made. Naruto took his chopsticks and broke them apart, digging in with relish. Oh, how he had missed ramen. When he finished his 2 big bowls, he wasn't hungry anymore. Well, when it came to ramen, he was always hungry, but he was carrying children now, so he had to take care of himself. Naruto looked at Tsunade, who was smiling. How about we go for a ballad? Just the 2 of us? She asked. I'd like that, he answered. They said goodbye to the others and left together. At first, they didn't speak, just walking quietly along. What will you do, Naruto? She asked, looking at him. I want to keep them, and I won't hide it, but I'm afraid. I already have Akatsuki after me. If they learn that I carry children, I'm afraid of what they'll do to them. You don't only have Akatsuki after you anymore. I wanted to hide it from you to protect you, but Jiraiya told me it wasn't a good idea. What do you mean, Ba-chan? Orochimaru and Sasuke are after you for different and the same reasons. I don't understand, they're with each other, aren't they? Sasuke ran away from Orochimaru. He tried to kill him. Orochimaru is after you because, if he has you, Sasuke will come to get you. Sasuke wants you because of Itachi. Because Itachi wants Kyuubi, he will go after Sasuke to get you. Why can they leave me alone? I have nothing to do with Sasuke anymore. He's dead to me. Won't I ever be happy without someone coming to kill me? I just want to have my family and not be afraid of each shadow. I understand that quite well, so Jiraiya and I have an idea. How about you come live with us? Jiraiya asked me to marry him. When he first asked me, I punched him. I thought he was drunk, but he was dead serious. We have a big house in Konoha's woods not too far from here. Do you want to see it? I'd like to. He smiled at her. This was far beyond anything he had imagined. If he lived with them, it would seem like a real family. He couldn't ask for more. When they arrived in front of the house, it seemed more like a castle to him. He entered after Tsunade and froze. The house was truly beautiful inside. Just like a family home. Jiraiya and Tsunade had asked him to come live with them. Once again, tears fell from his eyes. It was what he had always dreamt of. He looked at Tsunade with a big smile and hugged her. Thank you so much, Ba-chan. No need to thanks us, Naruto. After all, it's because of you that Tsunade fell in my arms. If we hadn't met, we wouldn't have searched for her together and she won't be Hokage. I'm the one who has to thank you. Thank you, Naruto, for being alive, said Jiraiya, who had just come in. Eros Sanin, why did they have to make him cry like that? He was afraid, of all this happiness, he didn't want it to end. After what Tsunade had told him, he would have to fight to protect his new life and his kids. That evening, Naruto ate with Tsunade and Jiraiya in his new home. When they finished, Tsunade showed him his room. It was a big one with a huge bed. He smiled a little and went to bed early. He was tired from his long day. He said good night and jumped in bed. As soon as his head touched the pillow, Naruto fell asleep. It wasn't a good sleep. His nightmares haunted him. He woke up in the middle of the night and stood. Naruto opened the window and sat on the edge. He stared at the black sky and crossed his arms. Kid, you had another nightmare? What was it about? Tell me, asked a lonely Kyuubi inside of his head. It seems so real. Akatsuki was extracting you from my body. It was horribly painful and the kids were dying. They were killing them and I couldn't do anything. I was so powerless. I couldn't help you, I couldn't save them. I don't want it to happen. I'm scared, said Naruto inside of his head, tears running again on his cheeks. Calm down now. It was only a nightmare. Your kids are alive and in 4 months you'll give birth. What if before I have them, the Akatsuki, Orochimaru or Sasuke kidnap me? I don't want them to find out. I don't know what they'll do to. Orochimaru could raise them to be a new vessel. Sasuke could keep them because they're half Uchiha or kill them because they're his brother's children. Akatsuki would kill them when they extract you from my body. I know all of that. We'll have to keep it from them and protect you until you give birth. After they're born, they won't be able to take me away anymore and you'll have the power to protect your family. If you need help, you can summon me outside your body. I'll help you. Now don't be afraid, go back to bed and sleep. I stay awake just in case. Thank you Kyuubi for always had been there for me. Good night. Naruto closed the window and went back to his bed, burying himself under the covers. He finished the night without waking up, but not without nightmares. Tsunade went to wake him with a smile. She told him to come to the kitchen and afterward, if it was all right with Kyuubi and himself, she wanted to see how the babies were developing. Naruto and Kyuubi agreed. After all, they weren't doctors, so it was the best if Tsunade took care of that. Jiraiya was waiting, and when Tsunade took off to the Hokage tower, he stayed with Naruto. They had decided that he was going to see her at 10. They took a walk inside the wood. Did Kyuubi know if your kits are boys or girls? One girl and one boy? Jiraiya asked. He said they were 2 little boys, but Tsunade will confirm it. Have you decided on their names? I don't know yet. I'm only 3 months along. I haven't time to think about it. Do you have any ideas? I don't know either. We can always ask Tsunade, and like you said, you do have 4 more months to decide. Yes, I still have time to think about it. Now, I need to go back to my apartment to fetch my things. Can you help me? Of course, I have nothing else to do. Naruto smiled and went to his apartment. At the door, he found Gaara, Neji, Hinata and Temari waiting for him. He smiled at them and Jiraiya opened the door. He'd had a spare key since Naruto disappeared. Tsunade and him came to make sure that his apartment wouldn't sold. They all entered. It was quite clean. Naruto opened his wardrobe, took a large bag, and began to put clothes in when he realized that some of them were too big for him now. Soon, though, they would fit again. He closed the bag and the wardrobe and put it on his shoulder. Naruto, we wanted to take you to get some barbecue. Jiraiya-sama is welcome as well, said Temari. Sure, but I have to go to see Tsunade. I'll catch up with you after my appointment, Naruto answered. Naruto-kun, where are you taking all of your stuff? Asked shy Hinata. Ba-chan let me come live with her. She said that my apartment will be too small for me and my kits and that she would be able to take care of my exams better. He offered a guilty smile. Jiraiya. He didn't know if he had the right to say to others that Tsunade and him were together. Jiraiya smiled back. He had understood very well what Naruto had meant by his smile. He wasn't angry at all. Soon, they would announce the marriage to everyone. Naruto and Jiraiya left soon after the little conversation to go see Tsunade. She was waiting for them in her office. She smiled and took Naruto to another room next to her office. There she asked him to take his t-shirt off. He did it and shivered a little. He lay down on the table and waited. She took her stethoscope and listened to his kits. She heard 2 different beats, which seemed normal. She smiled at Naruto backing off at the same time. Do you want to try and see them? She asked. Will I be able to see them? It's not too soon? We can try, maybe you'll be able to see a finger or 2. He smiled and stared at the TV screen beside him. He felt something cold on his belly and shivered a little. She took the remote control and applied it on his belly. Black and white images appeared on the screen. At first, they didn't see anything and soon they saw more than what they normally would. She moved his hand to see better and took it off. She then gave him his t-shirt that he put back on. I want to take a little of your blood. There's something wrong with the children, she said. What's wrong with them? Please Ba-chan, tell me what's wrong, he begged. They're growing too quickly. Even if your belly is still flat, your children aren't 3 months old. They seem to be more like 6 months. But, that's impossible. They only impregnated me 3 months ago. It's possible that they didn't only inject you with sperm. Carrying Kyuubi probably has something to do with it as well. Foxes carry children only for 52 days. It's only a hypothesis, but I think your DNA has mixed with Kyuubi's and so, you have no need to carry your children 9 months like humans. If this is true, you only have 1 month left before birth. Naruto fainted. Tsunade carried him out of the room and lay Naruto on a sofa in her office. She covered him with a blanket before she took a little of his blood. She asked Shizune to stay by Naruto's side and left to make experiment with the blood sample. When Naruto woke up, Tsunade wasn't there but Shizune was. He made a little smile and sat up. He looked at his feet when he felt something warm near his right cheek. He looked at it and saw Shizune holding a cup of hot chocolate. He smiled and took it. It warmed him from the inside out. He kept the cup in one hand and put the other on his belly. He couldn't believe he had only 1 more month before he gave birth. His belly was flat like Tsunade had said, but he wasn't carrying human babies. They were half fox, so they would be born as foxes. Tsunade came back an hour later and sat next to him. He looked at her anxiously. He had grabbed his blanket and was holding it shivering. She sat by his side and took a breath. I was right. They also had injected you with a growth enhancer. You have 1 month, maybe less. You have to be very careful now. Whatever happens, don't use your chakra or Kyuubi's. If you're in danger, run away, don't fight. You'll need all your strength and chakra to give birth. Please Naruto, promise me that. I promise. I won't fight, I'll run away to protect my kittens. But why can't I use my chakra? If you ever use your chakra, it will accelerate the kid's growth. You'll end up giving birth earlier. Naruto and Tsunade stayed quiet for a few minutes. Naruto finally broke the silence and stood slowly. He had to go to his friends. They had invited him for barbecue and he was hungry. I have to go. Want to come? He asked with a small smile. Where to? She asked. Temari and Hinata invited me to a barbecue. Jiraiya will be there too. Wanna come? Why not? I have to look after you and what you eat. I'm not a little child anymore, he said while pouting at Tsunade, who laughed. They left the Hokage Tower and went to the restaurant where all of his friends were waiting for them. Naruto smiled and sat next to Gaara and Jiraiya. Tsunade sat in front of Jiraiya, between Sakura and Shikamaru. They all ate happily before going their different ways. Jiraiya, Tsunade and Naruto went back to Tsunade and Jiraiya's house and went to sleep. Just as his head met the pillow, Naruto fell asleep. 2 days after Tsunade's revelation, Naruto had gone to the library to find names for his kittens. Tsunade had told Jiraiya, who was writing his Icha Icha Paradise series, and he was both shocked and happy. By now, Naruto had only 1 month left before the birth, so he had to hurry up. For him, it was the greatest thing he had ever done. Going to the library. Usually he hated that place. After 2 hours, he still hadn't found any names that he liked. He left the library and met Jiraiya, leaving a store. He smiled and waved his right arm at him. Jiraiya smiled back at him and waited for him to come closer. So, have you found any names? He asked, walking slowly. No names please me, he whispered. How about we go for a walk in the wood? Jiraiya proposed. Good idea. I'm in, Naruto replied cheerfully. After a few minutes of walking, they arrived at the bottom of a great waterfall. Jiraiya sat at the bottom of a tall tree and took out his notebook and a pen. Naruto smiled and went to walk. Perhaps a few names would come to mind. He was so lost in thought he didn't realize he was getting a little too far from Jiraiya. Just when he was about to go back. It couldn't be happening. They had this conversation just a day ago and now it was happening. Why did he have to come? He had give up on him, so why did he have to come back? Why did he want to involve him in his foolish plans? Naruto didn't understand anymore. Why was Sasuke here with his team? What do you want, Sasuke? Naruto. It's been a while, Sasuke said. Not long enough. Leave. I don't want to see you now. We have nothing to do with each other anymore. Quote, you hurt me. Just come with me, I need you for something. I know what you want, and it will never happen. Grown up. You're not a kid anymore. Naruto. It seems Orochimaru has come after you as well. He can't keep his snake myth closed. I want to talk to you. Come with me. It's been 6 years now. Why did you give up on me? You used to said that you would never give up. People change, Sasuke. In 6 years, a lot of things can change. I change as well. Now, go back. I don't want to see your face anymore. Even if you won't come with me, I want to talk with you. Naruto looked at him. He was serious. He had given up on Sasuke a long time ago. Now, he was just a memory. Naruto would soon have a family. He was happy now, even if the last 6 years of his life had been a nightmare. He wanted to live happily with his family and friends. But Sasuke seemed to see things differently. He would have his revenge. He would kill his brother for what he had done to his family, and Naruto would the bait to lure him. Kid, you can't fight here. Remember what the Hokage told you. Kyuubi said. I know, I promised her to not fight and to run away to protect my kittens and myself, but how? There are 4 of them, I'm alone and can't use my chakra. Do you have any idea? Naruto said in his head. Use a smokescreen, he said. It was a little simple, but basics were all he could manage just then. Naruto pulled out a smoke bomb and smashed it on the ground. When smoke appeared, he ran like crazy, feeling Sasuke's team following him. Naruto stumbled to a stop. It was official, his day couldn't get any worse. The entire Akatsuki was in front of him, looking rather pleased that it didn't look like he was in any shape to run away. Naruto was really in a bad position. How could all of them be in Konoha's woods without anyone knowing it? After all, this part of the woods was under Shikamaru's family's care, so how? Naruto dropped into a crouch. He knew that he shouldn't fight, He had made a promise to Tsunade, but he didn't have a choice. There were too many enemies and without chakra, he was as helpless as a newborn. Defenseless, Naruto turned his head to see Sasuke and his team behind him. "Kit, their waterfall is not far. If you can get there, Jiraiya can fight them off." "Got it," Naruto said to himself without realizing that he was speaking clearly. Naruto ran between two trees and without thinking, he used chakra to jump up to a tree branch to dodge Kisami's sword. He swore to himself. He really shouldn't be using his chakra, but he didn't have a choice. While Sasuke was trying to fight with his brother, Itachi was ignoring him to run after Naruto. Naruto saw red when he felt all his stomach muscles contract painfully. He missed the next branch and fell from the trees. He landed lightly on the ground and began again to run. He had a hand on his belly, the pain was getting worse. "Go on, Naruto. The waterfall isn't far. I feel Tsunade's chakra as well. The kits are coming," Kyuubi said. "Like I didn't know, this is painful," he said between his teeth. Akatsuki and Sasuke's team knew that something was wrong with Naruto. He had run away without fighting. He, who had Fox's agility, had nearly crashed on the ground. Something was seriously wrong. Naruto finally stopped running when he found himself at the top of the waterfall. "Ero Sanin, Ba-chan. Help me, they're coming now," he screamed, collapsing on his knees. Akatsuki and Sasuke, though he was talking about them, but Jiraiya and Tsunade understood. Jiraiya summoned Gamabunta, who caught Naruto with his long tongue and put him down near Tsunade. "They're not supposed to come for 4 more weeks. You used your chakra, didn't you?" she asked angrily. "I didn't have a choice. It's Sasuke and the Akatsuki, they appeared of nowhere. I ran away, but to dodge Kisami's sword I had to jump." "Arg, it hurts," he yelped, holding his belly. "Tsunade, you help Naruto, Gamabunta and me will fight," Jiraiya said, forming seals with his hands. Other frogs appeared, among them Gamakichi. "Yo, father, Jiraiya. What do you want?" he asked. "No time for that. We need help to protect Naruto." All of them jumped in surprise at the loud scream Naruto made. "Don't tell me they're coming now?" Gamakichi said. "They're coming, and they aren't the only ones," Jiraiya said, pointing his finger at the Akatsuki and Sasuke's team. Tsunade summoned a raven and sent him with a message to Konoha. The raven disappeared with it behind trees. She looked at Naruto, who was suffering greatly. There was no choice, he would have to give birth to them here. "Naruto, don't mind the others, you have to concentrate. I can't move you now, so you'll give birth here," Tsunade said. "I don't want to do it here," he said, his last word mixed with a scream. "There's no choice. We can't move you now, it's too late. Promise me, whatever happens, you will never let Akatsuki or Sasuke have them. Promise me," he said, screaming again. Tsunade promised, but she had no intention of leaving Naruto either. She would protect all of them. Jiraiya had engaged the fight with the Akatsuki and Sasuke and his team, but it was clear they were outnumbered. They weren't really concentrated in the fight either. They wanted to look at what was going on with Naruto and his kits. They were so distracted, especially Jiraiya, he didn't hurt his opponents who were asking him what was happening. When the last scream rang out of Naruto's mouth, they were born. Jiraiya lifted his arms in the air, punching Kakuzu's chin at the same time, screaming, "Banzai." Naruto looked at his kits, eyes nearly closed. They were little Kyubis. Their fur was crimson and they had 9 tails each. They were so cute, Naruto couldn't help but smile. He took them in his arms, looking at them lovingly. It wasn't really the moment to name them, but he had the names. "Ryu and Kira. Tsunade, take care of them for a while, please. I don't feel well." He put them in Tsunade's arms and lost consciousness. All fights had ended when the first kitten was born. They couldn't believe what they had just witnessed. Naruto had given birth to 2 little fox kits before collapsing. He had screamed a lot and they hadn't understood what was going on just before seeing the impossible. But the truth was still to understand. How Naruto was able to give birth. Where had he been the past 6 years? Jiraiya-sama, what happened to Naruto-kun? Where was he the past 6 years? Itachi asked, looking at the unconscious Naruto. "It has nothing to do with you." Gaara yielded. The Akatsuki, Sasuke and his team looked at him and saw that they were outnumbered now. All of Naruto's friends were there, ready to fight. Tsunade was still holding the kittens in her arms. Shizune and Sakura went to them and covered Naruto with a blanket. Jiraiya made his way to them and took Naruto in his arms, his back facing their enemies. He told Naruto's friends, "Tsunade and I are going back to Konoha. Buy us some time, please." "Ah, we'll take care of them," Shikamaru said. Tsunade and Jiraiya took off and Neji and Gaara blocked the way. The Akatsuki and Sasuke hadn't moved. They were still shocked. Just in front of them, Naruto had give birth to Kits. It was unbelievable. He was a man. But he had the Kyuubi no Kitsune in him, so perhaps all was possible, but now they all asked themselves how Naruto had fallen pregnant. Itachi didn't like not knowing what had happened. Jiraiya hadn't answered them and hadn't even fought seriously. Suddenly the silence was cut. "We're going back as well, see you later. Take care of Naruto," Gamabunta said. "Pops said it, take care of him, he deserved it," Gamakichi said. In few puffs of smoke, all the frogs disappeared. The silence took hold again. Naruto's friends were glaring at their enemies. They felt relieved. They had arrived in time to help save Naruto and his kittens. But Naruto was unconscious and seemed thinner than before. Silence was again cut. "Why are you so overprotective of him? And what was that just now? How can the Dobi give birth?" Sasuke asked. "That has nothing to do with you, Uchiha." Gaara glared at him. "Why don't tell us? We're going to discover the truth sooner or later." Sasori said. "Same answer. It doesn't concern any of you. Leave Naruto alone. You have done enough harm." Sakura said. "Sakura, are you in love with Naruto now?" Sasuke said with a smirk. "Naruto is like a brother to me, and I'm with Sai." "You're nothing, just a vulgar S-rank criminal," she replied with scorn. "Things change over the years, foolish little brother. Orochimaru didn't tell you anything? Poor child. I would pity you, but I don't have the time for it." Itachi said. "Just answer us. Where was Naruto-kun the past 6 years?" Pain said. "You can ask again and again, we're not going to tell you." Sai said with a smile. "I think we must tell them. After all, if what Kyuubi said is the truth, they can't take him away from Naruto anymore. So they will have no reason to go after him." Hinata said shyly. I agreed with Hinata-sama. "Once they know, they'll leave Naruto in peace." Neji agreed. "I'm not so sure. If they know the truth, maybe some of them are going to do something really foolish. Such as kill Naruto's kits or raise them to be a vessel. Nay, Orochimaru? Stop hiding, we know you there," Shikamaru said looking at a tree nearby. Orochimaru left his hiding spot and stood a few meters from them, Kabuto by his side like always. He was also interested in Naruto's story. "Explain yourself now," Deidara commanded. "It's better to tell them," Shizune said. All of Naruto's friends looked at each other and agreed, nodding their heads. It's Gaara who took the lead and began. 6 years ago, Naruto went missing. His apartment was a mess when Kakashi-san went to fetch him. He hadn't shown up at training. When Kakashi told Tsunade-sama what was going on, she sent numerous teams to find him but nothing turned up. At first, we thought that it was your doing, Akatsuki, but quickly we understood that you had no part in the abduction." Neji continued. 5 days ago, Jiraiya-sama found a lead and we all took off to go rescue Naruto. When we arrived, it was just a field, but Tsunade-sama was angry and she destroyed the ground, which revealed to us a hidden temple. Sakura said. Inside, it was a wrecked lab. There were containers, dead corpses, blood all over and Naruto. Sai continued. We met with you after that and ran away with Naruto. When we arrived at Konoha, Naruto wasn't well. Those who had kidnapped him had implanted a collar that was absorbing his chakra. Tsunade-sama took it off and Naruto woke up 2 days later. Shikamaru said. But during his sleep, Kyuubi took over his body and told us what they had done to him. As if what not enough for Naruto to have you, the Akatsuki, on his back, he had became their guinea pig. The result is what you saw. Naruto became pregnant and gave birth to those little kits who will gain their human bodies in 2 days. Gaara explained. Who's the father? Did they rape him? Hidan asked. They didn't rape him. They used IVF. The father is. Sakura looked at the other and they nodded. Uchiha Itachi. Finished Sai. Everyone was frozen. And Uchiha used to never show anything of their emotions, but, there, in front of them, Itachi had his eyes wide open and Sasuke was like a ghost. He had been angry at first when he had discovered why Naruto had given up on him, but now, he was at loss. How in the world his former best friend had given birth to his brother's children? It was unbelievable. Orochimaru was really interested in this news. If Naruto's children had both Kyuubi's DNA and chakra and Itachi's Sharingan, he will have no use of Sasuke anymore. Really, it was great for him. How that even possible? How could they obtain Itachi-san's sperm? Toby said seriously, which was truly shocking. We don't know that, but it wasn't the first experiment on Naruto-kun. Hinata said. Wait, Hinata, if what Kyuubi told us is true, then, Naruto hadn't have two children but, began Shikamaru. 3. Neji finished. This time, they were all miserable. How could they have forgotten the child that had massacred the scientists? They looked at each other. It's possible that even Naruto doesn't know about the third child. He was unconscious for 6 years. Sakura said, I'm sure if Kyuubi tells him, he'll want to find him. Naruto's like that, Choji said. 3 instead of 2, it's good and bad news. We don't know where he is. Kyuubi said he had followed the 3 scientists to kill them. He could be everywhere. Ino said, we have to find him before them, before he kills those scientists if it's not too late. I will kill them, Gaara said. I think, Tsunade-sama will kill them. Sai said, enough of the talking. We have to hurry back to Konoha to ask Kyuubi if he had some sort of connection with him. After all, this child has Kyuubi's chakra. Shikamaru said, what if this child is dead? After all, Kyuubi also said, that human woman can't give birth to demon child. What if he is dead somewhere? Only a Jinchuriki can carry demon children. Shizune said, we have no choice, if there's only 1% possibility that he is still alive, we have to find him and take him back to Naruto. And this time, it will be better if we don't take 6 years to do it. Sakura said. Itachi had been listening closely. Naruto hadn't 2 but 3 children, which meant that Itachi had 3 kids and one of them was somewhere all alone and perhaps dead. He didn't have the time to think about that. He would find him before them and Orochimaru or his brother. 4. The past 11 years, he had been in love with Naruto. Now was the time to prove what the Akatsuki really did. In a poof, all the Akatsuki disappeared and left Orochimaru and Sasuke. Sasuke and Orochimaru left as well. Naruto's friends looked at each other. Have we done what was best? Hinata asked. We shouldn't have told them about the third child. Now we have to find him before anyone else does. Gaara replied. They all went back to Konoha, where they told Tsunade and Jiraiya what had happened. This day, the Hokage tower was nearly destroyed by a very angry Tsunade. Naruto was lying on a bed. Tsunade was beside him, carrying his kittens. They had woken up and were staring at their mom who was still asleep. Tsunade and Jiraiya had taken care of them since Naruto had asked Tsunade to do it. When he finally woke up, the first thing Naruto saw was his kittens and Tsunade who was smiling at him. Ohio, Naruto. She said. Ohio, Ba-chan. He stared at his kittens and smiled lovingly. Ohio, Ryu, Kira. He added. The 2 little foxes squeaked and Tsunade let them move on the bed near their mom. He took and hugged them, small tears of happiness running on his cheeks. He was so happy, but he knew that his problems were far from solved. He looked at Tsunade. They all know, don't they? He asked. Yes, they know, but I have something else to tell you. She said. What is it? Is there a problem with my kittens? You don't have 2 but 3 kittens. One was born from another mother. You don't remember, but your first child tried to protect you, killing the scientists, and tracking some of them away from the lab. All of your friends are searching for him. She told him. I'll go too. He said. I knew you would say that, but you can't go, Naruto. You have 2 other kittens to take care of. You can't go and leave them behind. She said without allowing any answer back. Naruto looked at his kittens who were staring at him. He smiled but had already decided to go search for his third child. Even if he hadn't give birth to him, he was his child. Naruto, as the kid's biological mother, had the best chance of finding him and he would go fetch him. He didn't want to betray Tsunade's trust, but he needed to see his third child. Tsunade didn't know what he threw. 2 days after their birth, the kittens obtained their human bodies. Naruto had decided to leave and nothing would ever make him change his mind. He secretly asked Jiraiya to come with him and they took off that night. Naruto was carrying his little kittens who were asleep at that time. After 3 hours, they stopped in a cave and Jiraiya started a fire. Tsunade will kill me. She really is going to kill me when she'll find out. Jiraiya said. I'm sorry, Ero-sanin, but I couldn't go by myself. Naruto said. Don't be sorry, I feel like a grandfather who's playing hide and seek with his grandson. I'll always help you, Naruto, he said with a smile. Naruto smiled back, and after had eaten something, he went to sleep. When the sun set, he was awoken by laughter. He stood and looked at Jiraiya, who was holding his kittens. He smiled and looked at them discreetly. They were only a few days old and already they were learning how to smile, laugh and grab fingers. He had never been this happy before. Naruto's mind wandered to his eldest son. What would he look like? Would he recognize his mother? Far away, a child woke up. He looked about 5 years old with bright golden hair, blue eyes and tan skin. He rubbed his eyes and stood. All he could think about was his mom. When he had returned to the hidden temple, he wasn't there anymore. Someone had taken him. He had searched for him but hadn't found anything. He hadn't given up and was still searching for him every day. He would find his mom whatever it took. He looked at the sky and rubbed his stomach, hungry. Going to a nearby river, he caught 3 fish. In reality, the boy was only 2 weeks and 4 days old, but the scientists had played with his DNA to accelerate his growth. He hadn't grown for 2 whole days, so he was hoping that perhaps he would grow normally in the future. He took his fish and began to eat. They weren't cooked, but it was all he could do on his own. When he finished, he took off to resume his epic search for his mother. Sasuke and his team were searching for this nameless little boy. He could be anywhere and they had separated to cover more land. Sasuke was furious. Now he had another reason to kill his brother. He knew that he hadn't actually touched Naruto, but he was angry that his Dobi had carried his brother's children and not his. Sasuke knew he loved Naruto, and he truly hoped that it wasn't too late to have a chance with him. He remembered Naruto's expression when they had met. Naruto hated him right now, but if Sasuke saved his oldest child, maybe that would change. Itachi was also searching for the missing child. Kisame, Deidara and Sasori were with him. They were in shock but still searching as best they could, knowing that if Sasuke or Orochimaru found the child first, the consequences would be dire. Itachi was wondering how he would manage to recognize his child. He only saw his 2 children, but they were still little foxes. It had been 4 days now and still no sign of him. He sped up, channeling more chakra to his feet. Kit, I feel something, he's nearly right in front of you. There is a valley. He is there. You can be there in an hour if you speed up. Naruto smiled ecstatically. What's the matter, Naruto? Jiraiya asked. Kyuubi found him. He said he was in a valley an hour ahead of us. He repeated happily. That's great. Let's hurry. Jiraiya yelled. They hurried in the direction Kyuubi had indicated, Naruto still smiling like crazy. He would finally meet his last child. He couldn't ask for more. Itachi stopped suddenly, looking in front of him. There he was, a chibi Naruto. He couldn't mistake him. He had known Naruto since he had been 10 years old, and those bright blue eyes and golden hair couldn't be mistaken. He slowly walked toward him and stopped when the child faced him. Who are you? The little child asked, looking at him with his big blue eyes. My name Uchiha Itachi, I'm your dad, right? The child finished. Itachi squatted in front of the child, just looking at him. How do you know that he's your father? Sasori asked from behind Itachi. The bad people told me, they said I was part Uchiha and part mom. Nay, if you're my dad, you know mom. Where is he? I want to see him, I missed my mommy. I could only see him in his glass tube. The child asked, crying. Itachi held out his arms and took the little boy in his arms. He was as light as a feather. He held him against his chest. He had found his child before his brother or Orochimaru. Now there were just 3 things missing, Naruto and his 2 other children. He looked at the 3 others and they took off quickly. Naruto arrived but couldn't find his kit. He hugged his kittens near his chest. He was gone. Someone had taken him, or he had gone by himself. Naruto and Jiraiya found a place to stay for the night and set up camp silently. Naruto fell asleep near his kittens, tears falling from his eyes. When the morning came, Naruto woke up with the sun and found Jiraiya still asleep, mumbling about Tsunade. He smiled a little, took his kittens and left without him. Gomen Nasai Ero Sanin, he whispered. Naruto wanted to be alone when he found his first child. What if Orochimaru, Sasuke or worst, Akatsuki, had taken his kit? He had to find him quickly. After 2 hours, he stopped running to feed his kittens. He did it with a smile. They were just too cute for words. When they fell asleep again, their bellies full, He looked at the river nearby and he thought about his children. They were Itachi's portraits. Dark eyes and hair, pale skin and 2 scars on their face, 1 on each cheek. He didn't understand why he loved them so much when he hated their father and his brother. It was true that in the past, he had loved Sasuke, but he had discovered the truth when Sasuke had left with Orochimaru and had tried to kill him. Naruto had clearly understood that love could be unrequited, and it had taken him 3 years to kill his feelings for him. He didn't want to remember the years in the lab, especially the first 2, when he had still been awake. It had been so painful, his body still remembered. Naruto shivered. They had implanted his collar and all of his chakra had been drained out. He was so defenseless. Kyuubi had put him in a deep sleep so he wouldn't feel the pain anymore. He was lost in his thoughts and didn't notice that someone was watching him. He only realized when his little kittens began to move and smile happily. He stood quickly and turned around to find the last person he wanted to meet. Uchiha Itachi. Near him was a little boy who was smiling like crazy. Naruto looked at him and knew instantly that he was the first child. So it was Itachi who had taken him before he arrived. Naruto shot a death glare at the Uchiha just before the child ran toward him. He kneeled down and took him in his right arm, holding his other 2 kids with his left. "I wanted to find you, Mom. Dad said he felt you. We came to find you. I missed you so much. I was searching for you too. I'm so happy you're okay." "Are they my little brothers?" the child said, looking at the little kittens in Naruto's left arm. "Yes, this is Ryu and Kira," Naruto said, smiling at them. "I have a name too. Dad gave it to me," the child said happily. "Your dad?" Naruto whispered, looking at the Uchiha who was now coming his way. "His name is Itachi," Itachi said. Naruto didn't answer to the Uchiha. He stood again looking from his children to him. They were only 2 meters away from each other. "What are you going to do now? You can't take Kyuubi away from me anymore and I have children who need me." "Are you going to kill their mother?" Naruto asked. "I won't kill you. We never wanted to kill you," Itachi answered. "Like I'm going to believe you. You nearly killed Gaara when you took Ichibi away from him. How can you even imagine for 1 second that I'm going to believe what you now?" Naruto said. "What about this? You come with me and we will tell you the truth," Itachi said. "I don't want to follow you. I was only here to find my kitten. Now, I have to go back to Konoha before anything happens. They're my children too. I'm not going to give them to you. I don't want them to become a murderer like you or your brother. I've had enough of all of that. I just want to live happily with my kittens." "Naruto, you're not someone who would deprive 3 children of a father. I know you're not like that. You're right, I'm not like that, but it's not like I chose you for their father. What should I do? You want me to come with you and live happily with the rest of the Akatsuki? Don't make a fool of me. I'm not crazy enough to do that. You have chased me like if I was an animal. I spent 2 years running away from you, trying to find my best friend. In the end, I lost all of that. I spent 6 years of my life as a guinea pig. Why can't you just leave me alone?" Naruto asked sadly. "I have searched for you those past 6 years and it was not to take away the Kyuubi no Kitsune. I know you won't believe me, but I love you, Naruto. I've known you for a long time, even before you met with Sasuke. I was in Anbu and I watched over you. I had always wanted to tell you, but you were so small and..." "Stop with those bullshit. You loved me? If you had really loved me back then, you would have helped me, you wouldn't have let them hurt me. But you never stood between them and me. You never do anything. I had always been alone. Only Kyuubi was there to heal me and watch over me. How can you say something like that? Stop your lies. I'm not lying to you. It's true, I never stood to save you, but I couldn't do anything. I was only 13 at that time and I was obeying orders. When I realized what I was doing, it was already too late. I was a murderer. I know I have no excuse, but I don't lie. I loved you back then and I love you now. Please, Naruto, come with me. We can talk more when you and the kittens have warm food and a safe place to rest." Naruto looked at Ryu, Kira and Itachi. They were trembling. He didn't want to follow him, but Konoha was far away and he was tired. It was only 4 days since he had given birth to his twins. He looked at the Uchiha and was about to accept his offer when Sasuke came up behind him. "You won't go with him, Naruto." "Sasuke, what are you doing here? I said it, didn't I? I don't want to see your face again," Naruto said. "And I said, I wanted to talk to you. Just stay away from him for a moment, I will kill him. After, we will have all the time in the world to talk." Sasuke said, jumping from a tree. Foolish little brother, you really do come in at the worst times. Naruto said he didn't want to talk to you, why can you leave him alone? Itachi said, I won't let him go with. You're a murderer and Naruto is mine. He had always been and will always be mine. I'm not yours, bastard. How could I love someone who tried to kill me twice? Naruto asked, standing in front of Itachi to protect him, hugging the twins to his chest with both arms. I love you and I know you love me too. I used to love you. Now I hate you from the bottom of my heart. I don't need you to live happily. It's all because of those stupid children. If they weren't here, you wouldn't have changed. If I kill them, you will come back to me. Sasuke had a crazed glint in his eyes, taking out his sword, ready to kill. You're totally insane. They have nothing to do with that. I stopped loving you 6 years ago. Naruto screamed. Talking wasn't working. Sasuke was dangerous to Naruto's kittens. Naruto knew that he hadn't the strength to fight against him. He was still too weak from childbirth to fight effectively. Still, he would die before letting anyone hurt his children. Naruto was ready to fight when Sasuke ran toward him with his sword, but Itachi stood between them and stopped his brother easily. They began to fight together and Naruto didn't know what to do. He could take the chance to run away with his kittens, but this idea disappeared when Itachi ran toward the fight. Itachi! Naruto screamed. Just at that time, Itachi looked back at his child and Sasuke took this chance and dashed toward him to kill him. Naruto didn't think anymore and stood between Sasuke and his child. The sword pierced Naruto's belly and all froze instantly. Kisame, Sasori, Deidara and Hidan arrived just at that time. Ryu and Kira began to cry. Naruto had left them near a tree so they wouldn't get hurt. Itachi had his eyes wide open with horror. Naruto was holding Sasuke's sword in his hand to prevent him from taking it back and trying to kill one of his kittens. A drop of blood dropped between Naruto's lips and he collapsed on the ground. Sasuke ran away, leaving his sword in Naruto's stomach. Mom, open your eyes, please, Mom, wailed Itachi. Itachi ran toward his son. Deidara and Sasori went to look after the twins. Itachi looked at Naruto, who was unconscious and bleeding all over the place. He removed the sword and took him in his arms. Kisame carried Itachi and they all followed Hidan, who led them to the Akatsuki's headquarters. In front of the door, they found Kakuzu and Tobi fighting like children. Itachi passed them and went directly to Zetsu's lab. Itachi lay Naruto on a table and looked at Zetsu. He didn't say anything to him, but Zetsu told him to leave the room. Zetsu took off Naruto's shirt and looked at the wound. It had stopped bleeding. Zetsu formed a few seals with his hand and put them on Naruto's belly. The wound slowly closed. 1 hour later, Zetsu left the room and found Itachi, Sasori and Deidara waiting for him. Itachi was in his father's arms and the twins in Sasori's and Deidara's. How's Mom? Is he all right? Please, Uncle Zetsu, Itachi asked, tears beginning to fall on his cheeks. The members of the Akatsuki had already all become his uncles. Don't cry, Itachi, he's all right. He is asleep now. He need a lot of rest. Zetsu said. May I see him? The little boy asked. Yes, but don't wake him up. Itachi let go of his son, who ran quietly in the room. Zetsu, what happened? Itachi asked. I don't know yet, but it seems there's something in his blood, which prevented the Kyuubi no Kitsune's chakra from heal him quickly. Zetsu said. What do you mean? Sasori asked, still holding one of the twins. Naruto's body is adapting to a fusion with Kyuubi. It means he needs some time, but he didn't take it. He escaped from the hospital to find Itachi. Zetsu said. Will he be all right? Asked Itachi. Yes, he will be, but he needs plenty of rest, so you will have to take care of your sons and leave him alone, Itachi-san. I understand. I'll go see him. He took his 2 other sons in his arms. It was funny to see at himself in a chibi version. He didn't show it to them and entered the lab. There, he found Itachi asleep with Naruto. His head was resting on his mom's chest. When no one could see him, Itachi smiled. He took a chair and sat by Naruto's side. He looked at his face. Truly, he was far more beautiful than in his memories. His hair seemed brighter, his skin was always the same, but he was skinnier and by far. Itachi was angry. How could he have become like this and be still alive? He had passed the last 6 years of his life in a container. Itachi swore to himself that he would avenge him. Suddenly, one of his sons in his arms began to cry, and quickly after his twin followed him. Naruto and Itachi woke up. Naruto looked at Itachi, then at his kittens. Slowly, he reached out with his right hand and touched them with the tips of his fingers. They slowly stopped crying and looked at their father. "Mom, are you okay?" Itachi asked. "Don't worry, I'll be fine. I'm just a little tired." Naruto whispered. "You need to sleep, Dad and Itachi will take care of Ryu and Kira," said the little boy with a smile. "You're a good big brother," Naruto said, putting him into a hug with his left arm. "Itachi, take your little brothers to your uncle's. I need to talk to your mom a little," Itachi said. "But, Uncle Zetsu said Mom need a lot of rest." Itachi protested. "Don't worry, it won't take long." Itachi kissed his mom on his cheek, took his little brothers carefully, smiled at his father, and left the room. Itachi looked at Naruto, who was staring at him. "Where I am? What happened?" Naruto asked. "You're at the Akatsuki's headquarters. Sasuke tried to kill Itachi, but you took the blow for him. Zetsu took care of your wound," Itachi explained. "What are you going to do to my kittens and I?" "Nothing. I already told you, I won't hurt you or our children. I just want to give them a true family, with you." "Kit, he's telling you the truth. It seems he loves you a lot. Why don't you give him a chance? He can protect you and your kittens," Kyuubi said in Naruto's mind. Naruto closed his eyes and opened them to look again at Itachi. He agreed, but he had his conditions. "I'll give you a chance, but there won't be a second." "Naruto, not so fast. I have some conditions. First, if anything happened to our kittens, I'll make you regret it. Second, I want to stay in contact with Tsunade Ba-chan and Ero Sanin. And third, I don't want our kittens or myself to be named as Akatsuki members." "We're not. Is that okay?" Naruto told him. "I'll have to ask the leader. But for now, I'll take you to your room. A lab is not a good place to rest," Itachi said. He stood and gently took Naruto in his arms. Naruto blushed, he could feel Itachi's muscles. Strangely, Naruto felt secure, happy, and sleepy. His eyes closed and he fell asleep in Itachi's arms. Itachi smiled and left the lab. He found the leader and the rest of the Akatsuki outside the door. Itachi was in Kisami's arms, Ryu in Sasori's and Kira in Deidara's. "What did you talk about?" asked the leader with a low voice as to not wake Naruto. "He said he will stay, but he has 3 conditions," Itachi answered. "He wants his kittens to be safe and not harmed in any way, to stay in contact with Tsunade and Jiraiya and not to be associated with the Akatsuki." Itachi explained. "I was sure you would want to keep in touch with them. He's not my son for nothing," the leader said with a beaming smile, which could easily compete with Naruto's. If Itachi was a chibi version of Naruto, then Minato Namikaze, the Akatsuki's leader, was his older version. It was really the worst day for him. He had lost Naruto, Tsunade had unleashed her rage on him, and he had not finished his new chapter of Icha Icha Paradise. How he missed Naruto's jutsu. But he was more worried about Naruto. When he had woken up, Naruto had been long some, and when he searched for him, he had found Naruto's blood on Sasuke's sword lying on the ground. Now, Jiraiya was in his house, thinking about what had happened. When Naruto woke up, it was the middle of the night. He got up and found another bed near his. Itachi was sleeping in Itachi's arms. He also found a cradle with his kitten, also sleeping. He looked at them and took them in his arms slowly. He sat on his bed and looked at them. "What are you thinking about, Kit?" Kyuubi asked. "I don't know. I just want to feel them near me," Naruto answered. "How do you feel? Your body, I mean." "I feel better, but what happened? Why did it take you so long to heal me?" "Your body is adapting to the fusion, so you're vulnerable, right now. It'll take a few more days before the fusion is finished. Then, you're telling me that I have to rely on them to help me?" "Yes, you have to rest or the fusion will take more time. But don't worry, he will protect you." "I know that." "How?" "I can tell when someone lying. So does he really have feelings for me?" "Yes, he really does love you a lot. You can trust me. But, I don't love him at all. He's a murderer and he tried countless times to." "You're awake, Mom?" asked a little sleepy voice. Naruto smiled and lay his twins on his bed, opening his arms for Itachi. The little boy smiled, ran silently to his mom and huddled up against Naruto's chest. "Don't worry, I'll go back to sleep soon. We can talk a little, just the 2 of us," he said. "I'd like to. Can I ask you something?" Itachi asked. "Sure, what is it?" "Go ahead," he answered. "Why do you hate Dad?" he asked innocently. Naruto didn't answer immediately. He thought about it for a minute without realizing that Itachi had awoken. How to answer that? It's not that I hate him. I mean, I used to hate him like I used to love his brother, but in 6 years I guess I changed. I don't love his brother anymore, but your father, I don't know how I feel about him anymore. I used to think that he was a really bad person, but it was because he was constantly after me and he tried to kill one of my friends. Now I don't know what to think about him. Naruto explained. Dad doesn't smile often, but he is really gentle. My uncles are too. They're really amazing. I love Uncle Toby, he's so funny, and Uncle Deidara is funny too, with his art. They all have their good points. Itachi said. But you've only known them for a day. How can you be so sure about them? That's because I'm part you, Mom. I can tell if someone's good or not. I feel like I'm the only one who doesn't understand people. That's because you have to learn how to live with people again. Itachi said. Naruto looked at him and Itachi smiled. He hugged his mother and took carefully his little brothers. He put them back in their cradle and went back to sleep after kissing his father. Itachi covered him with the blanket, stood and sat back near Naruto. At first, neither of them spoke and finally Itachi broke the silence. How do you feel? Does your stomach hurt? He asked. I'm fine, don't worry, Naruto said. Naruto, I know I can't turn back time, but I really want you to understand the truth about Akatsuki. We didn't intend to kill you. But you nearly killed Gaara when you took Shukaku out of his body. We have no excuse for that. Shukaku didn't want to let go of his vessel. He wanted Gaara's body like Orochimaru wanted Sasuke's. What do you mean? Among the 9-tailed beasts, there are some, which are not really friendly. Like Shukaku, they can't live in harmony with their vessel, so they tried to kill their soul to take over their body. If we tried to take the Kyuubi no Kitsune away from you, it was because we believed he was like them. It's true that I didn't have the choice when Kyuubi was sealed inside me, but I grew up with him. I know better than anyone that he's not dangerous for me. We understand that now. That's why we won't take him away. Either you want or not, you can't anymore. We know that too. Don't be afraid, we won't do anything to you. Leader would kill us. What do you mean? Is he in love with me too? It's a different kind of love. But he loves you. I don't understand. You will understand, soon. Itachi said. They looked at each other without saying a word. Naruto was confused and he needed time to think about all the stuff he had learned. Why did you name Itachi like that? Naruto asked, bowing his head, his cheek lightly red. Because I love you. Even if we don't share the same feelings, I still love you. His name is a mix of ours. Itachi answered, always looking at him. Aren't you angry at me to have named the twins without asking you? I am not. I like their names. You chose them well. Naruto was mute now. He was staring at the floor, to mask the fact that he was turning red. Itachi held out his hand and reached slowly one of Naruto's cheeks. Naruto raised his head in surprise and looked at him with fear in his eyes. Itachi gently caressed Naruto's cheek. Don't be afraid, I won't hurt you. He said lowly, kissing lightly his lips. Naruto shivered a little and closed his eyes. Itachi pressed a little more, his lips on Naruto's. He tasted them with the tip of his tongue and backed off slowly after a few more seconds of gentle kissing. Itachi was right. Naruto's lips were so sweet. He had wondered what they tasted like for a long time and now he had his answer. Naruto was wondering why he had backed off and at the same time why he had do something like that. He wasn't angry, just confused. He looked at Itachi discreetly and touched his on lips with his fingers. He tasted them with his tongue. So that was how Itachi tasted. He had the same taste as peaches. Naruto turned even redder at this thought. The two of them stayed quiet thinking about the other next to them. They really are so soft. I was expecting Itachi-san to be more direct. Toby said. There are children in the room. So he is controlling himself. If not, he would already have raped him. Deidara said. No, Itachi-san is not like that. He loves Naruto so much that he won't rush him. Naruto is so cute, Itachi-san wants to cherish him. Hidan said. What do we have here? A band of stalkers? Kakuzu said. Toby, Deidara and Hidan jumped in surprise and faced three men who seemed really angry. Deidara looked innocently at Sasori, Toby at Setsu and Hidan at Kakuzu. What were you doing? Leader said to leave them alone. Asked Sasori. We were just curious. We only looked at them, nothing else. Deidara answered. All of you are really horrible. At your age, do you still need to be punished? Asked Zetsu. I think they need some punishment. Kakuzu said. I agree with Kakuzu, added Sasori. Zetsu, Kakuzu and Sasori smiled sadistically and walked away with their lovers on their shoulders. Tobi was fighting Zetsu, who was openly touching his ass. He knew that he would not be able to walk for the next few days. Hidan was praying his god Jashin because even if he was immortal, Kakuzu was going to kill him in bed. Deidara was turning redder and redder. He was thinking about what was going to happen to him and couldn't help it. They all went to their rooms, put silencing jutsu on the doors, and Sasori, Kakuzu and Zetsu began their punishments. Itachi and Naruto were still frozen and quiet. Naruto was trying to calm his heart, which was racing like crazy, and Itachi was trying to calm his desire to kiss him again. Naruto swallowed, his head always bowed, and said lowly, I'm going to sleep. Can I sleep with you? Itachi asked. Sure, Naruto answered, turning even redder. He lay down next to the wall and Itachi lay down next to him. He slowly took Naruto in his arms and hugged him lovingly. Naruto closed his eyes and breathed his scent. He was sure Itachi could hear his heart but didn't do anything to distance them. He simply let himself fall asleep. When the sun set, Naruto woke up to find a sleeping Itachi next to him. To tell the truth, he was still in his arms but his head was resting on his chest. Naruto could hear his heart beating and felt his muscles with his cheek. It was really strange. No, it was just new to Naruto. He had never before woken up in someone's arms. It felt wonderful. Naruto was feeling happy but he didn't know why. He didn't love Itachi but the soft kiss they had shared the last night was still in his head. Itachi showed his face with a childish smile. Naruto put a finger on his lips to tell him to not make any noise and to join them. Itachi didn't waste his time. He climbed on the bed and huddled against his father. Naruto gently caressed Itachi's cheek and smiled. It was really a wonderful morning. He had never had one like this before. He closed his eyes to enjoy the moment and Itachi opened his with a little smile. He looked at his son and at Naruto. For him too, it was the best morning by far. He was just hoping that it would not be the last of its kind. Being by Naruto's side when he woke up, how many times had he had dreams about that? Now it was reality and he was happy as he hadn't been in a long time. On Deidara, Hidan and Tobi were all exhausted. Their respective lovers hadn't given them a slight punishment. No, they really had been mean to them. Deidara opened his eyes and gave up on standing up. He couldn't feel his ass anymore. He cursed Sasori but smiled brightly when he thought about what had happened. He covered himself with the blanket to mask the fact that he was turning red. Tobi wasn't able to move either. He was lying on his bed and the slightest movement was killing him. Really, when Zetsu was giving punishment to him he was a real sadist. Adding the fact that he had two personalities, it was the worst thing ever. Hidan was smiling like crazy. Kakuzu was near him asleep with him in his arms. Sure, he was in the same condition as Deidara and Tobi. He couldn't move without feeling pain in his body but he was happy. Was he a masochist? He didn't know it himself but when Kakuzu was with him he was in the clouds. He didn't move, but even if he could, he would have stayed smiling in his lover's arms. An hour later, Naruto decided to get up when his twins began to cry. He left Itachi on the bed with Itachi without knowing that they were awake. He gently took his twins in his arms and smiled at them. They were hungry and to be honest, Naruto too. Itachi got up with Itachi in his arms and stood near him. "Good morning," he said. "Good morning. What conversation?" Itachi began to laugh. His dad and mom were really too cute. Even if Itachi wasn't turning red, he could tell he was in the same state as Naruto, who was bright red. "Come with me, you're as hungry as those three," Itachi said with a little smile. Naruto just nodded his head to confirm the fact that they were. He followed him out of the room and they made it to the kitchen where Sasori and Zetsu were in big conversation about their last night. What perverts they were. Naruto looked at them, just bowing to salute them, and searched for milk to give to his kittens. Itachi put Itachi on his feet. He ran toward his uncle Sasori, who took him on his lap. "Ohio, Uncle Sasori, Uncle Zetsu. Where are Uncle Deidara and Uncle Tobi?" the little boy asked. "They're still sleeping, they had a rude night," answered Sasori. Then, "Where Uncle Pain and Uncle Kisame?" he asked. "They are in the kitchen arguing about what to do for the breakfast." "They really are children when it comes to food," Zetsu said. "I'll go see them," said Itachi. When the little boy entered the kitchen, Pain and Kisame were fighting over the kitchenware. Itachi burst in laughers and his father looked at them without reaction. They stopped to fight and Itachi ran toward Pain, who took it in his arms. "Hello, Itachi, have a good night?" Pain asked. "Yes, but this morning, I had to sleep with Mom and Dad. I'm so happy. Mom is in the living room with my little brothers. He would like to have milk for them." The little kid said. "Sure thing, I'll go give it to him," Pain said. He put Itachi in Kisame's arms, took 2 feeding bottles filled with milk and went to the living room. When he entered, he found Sasori and Zetsu talking with Naruto. He smiled and went to them with a smile. Silence took his place. Naruto was looking at the man with big eyes. He could never mistake him. It was Namikaze Minato, the Yondaime, one of Konoha Hokage. But it wasn't possible, he was supposed to be dead during his fight against Kyuubi. "Here, milk for your children," Pain said with a smile. Thank you, Naruto said, taking the 2 bottles. "Do you want help to feed them?" "As you like." Sasori and Zetsu went to the kitchen to let them talk in peace. Pain took Ryu and Naruto began to feed milk to Kira. "You seem surprised to see me," Pain began. "It's just that you look just like someone I never met and that I admire," Naruto answered. "I look like the Yondaime, nay?" "Yes, it's surprising. I am the Yondaime. Don't joke about him. The Yondaime would never be a missing enin. Things change, Naruto. You know that better than other. He died when he sealed Kyuubi and me. You can't be him. I am Namikaze Minato. I have my reasons to have made the other believe in my death. I will explain it to you. But before that I need to talk with you about something. What is it that can be more important than the truth about the Yondaime's death?" "You, me? I don't understand. You're not stupid, Naruto. Jiraiya or Tsunade have surely told you that you look just like me. I am your father, Naruto." Naruto went mute at that revelation. It couldn't be true. Naruto had no parents, nobody had ever wanted him. He was a monster, he knew it. Everyone hated him because he had killed their precious Yondaime when he had sealed the Kyuubi no Kitsune inside him. Naruto began to laugh and finally turned his head toward the man who surely looked like his older version. He was angry and tears of sadness were falling from his eyes. It's truly cruel to joke about people's family. If you're not aware of it, I'm an orphan who has always been seen as a monster. I have no family other than my kittens, Tsunade and Jiraiya. So stop your nonsense. You have a really bad sense of humor. Naruto took his other son in his arms and ran away from the living room, leaving a choking Namikaze Minato alias Pain. Naruto came back to the room where he had sleep, put down his kittens in their cradle and fell on his ass, his back on the wall. He put his head in his arms, leaving his tears falling. Why do people have to be so cruel? Is it that funny to make fun of me? He asked himself. Kit, don't cry. If you keep on crying, your kittens will cry too. They can feel their mother's sadness. The fox answered. I can't stop. Why are they so cruel? I just want to be happy with my kittens. Is that too much to ask? Kit. In his mind, Kyuubi took Naruto against his chest and put his 9 tails around him. He couldn't stand to see him like that. But he knew that what the man had said was the truth. He just had to get Naruto to believe him. Naruto wasn't crying anymore. He was still really confused about what that man had said to him. Was he really his father? If it was true, why did he hide? Why did he not come back to be with him? Why did he have to make people believe he was dead? This man was an egoist. Naruto was sure of that. It was because of him that all his life had been a real hell. Because of him, he had to suffer for something he had never done. He was always alone, and now that he had something he could call his family, this man was telling him he was his father. Naruto hadn't had the courage to listen more of what he had to say. He couldn't be true. It was definitely a lie. His father couldn't possibly have made his life like that when he had sealed Kyuubi inside him. His own child. No, it was definitely a lie. Naruto put his head in his arms and tried to not think about it anymore. Minato was really mad at himself, but he was also really mad at Konoha. He had sacrificed his life to protect them and they treated his own son like a monster. Sure, Minato had heard of that from Itachi, but he didn't think it was what Naruto was thinking of himself. How could he have done something like that to his own son? Now his son had grown up believing that he had killed the Yondaime, without knowing that the Yondaime was his father, and believing that he was a monster hated by all people who knew about him. The online family he had known was Tsunade, Jiraiya and Iruka. Some people had stolen 6 years of his life and now he was there. With people who were seen as murderer and who had tried to kill one of his friends. To take out his rage, he broke the table with one fist. It attracted the attention of the others who were in the kitchen. When they entered, they saw the broken table and looked at their leader who was sitting on a bench, his head between his hands. Itachi ran toward his grandfather. "Grandfather, what happened? Where is mommy?" he asked, putting his face in front of his grandfather's eyes. "He left when I told him who I was. He doesn't want to believe I'm his father. I wanted him to know why I had sealed the Kyuubi no Kitsune inside him, but he ran away before I could do it," he explained, sitting Itachi on his laps. "I'm sure mom only needs time to think about what had happened," Itachi said with a smile. "What's make you think that?" Itachi asked. "Because I know mommy is lost. When I was lost, you found me, Dad. Mom is lost because he has changed. During the time those bad people were doing those things to mom, his feelings had changed. Remember when we saw Uncle Sasuke, he said he used to love him. Mom doesn't love him anymore. I can feel that just like Ryu and Kira can. When mom cries, we cry too. That's because we are part mom," Itachi explained. "Then will he be willing to listen to the truth?" asked Minato. "You have to wait a little, but you have to do it before mom's second greatest change happened in his life," Itachi said with a smile. "What is it? And what is the first one?" Itachi asked. "Mom's fusion with grandfather Kyuubi. Unlike Ryu, Kira and me who have the possibility to take full fox form, mom will only have ears and tails. And we will also be able to meet grandfather Kyuubi. And the first change, it's his love for father," Itachi said, smiling like crazy on Minato's laps. "I won't say anything for the second change, but how can you be so sure about the first one?" asked Itachi. "That's because of the kiss you gave to mom last night," he said. "You weren't supposed to be asleep?" asked Itachi with a severe voice. I wasn't," said Itachi nervously. "Itachi. Minato stood after have put Itachi down. Minato was mad at Itachi. He was the protective father type and a man had kissed his son without his agreement. More, he hadn't even had the time to create a real father-son relationship that Itachi had made his move. Minato had caught Itachi and had locked Itachi's head with his arm. "How could you do that? I think I had told you to wait until I talked to Naruto," Minato said. "Gomen Nasai. It's just that I love him so much I couldn't resist. He was just beside me. But it was only a kiss, we haven't done anything else yet," Itachi said. "Yet, Itachi, I forbid you to approach my son until I talk to him properly," Minato said, half joking, but that, Itachi didn't know it. Itachi was laughing and he wasn't the only. Kisame and Zetsu were too. Sasori was trying to not laugh, but it was difficult. He put a hand in front of his mouth to help himself. Itachi left discreetly to go see his mother. When he entered the room he found him on the ground, his head in his arms. "Mom," he said lowly. Naruto raised his head and looked at his son. Itachi closed the door and went to his mother. He sat between his legs and put his head against his chest. Naruto put his arms around him and kissed his hair. They stayed like that a moment without saying anything. "Mom, do you really dislike being here?" Itachi asked with a little voice. "I don't know. I don't know whom to believe anymore. I'm scared that all of that is only another dream, and if I opened my eyes, I will still be in this container," Naruto said, holding his son a little more near him. "That's not a dream. Ryu, Kira and me are here. Dad, grandfather and uncles too," Itachi said with a smile. "This man is not your grandfather. I don't have family other than Tsunade, Jiraiya and Iruka-sensei," Naruto said sadly. "That's because you're too stubborn to listen to the truth. I'm sure grandfather Kyuubi knows the truth. He knows that grandfather Minato is your father," Itachi said loudly with a pout on his face. Naruto was laughing. Kyuubi wasn't really happy to be called grandfather and was growling inside of Naruto. The twins moved in their cradle happily and Naruto stood to take them. Itachi was beside him. He took Kira and Naruto took Ryu. Their little father. But unlike him, they smiled a lot just like you, Mom, Itachi said. "Don't be jealous, you're just like me," Naruto said with a smile. "And like grandfather Minato. The three of us are alike, it's funny," Itachi said while rubbing his nose gently against his little brother's. Naruto didn't answer. He smiled sadly and let Ryu play with the necklace Tsunade had gave him. Naruto realized that she was surely really worried and that Jiraiya was surely half dead because of him. Naruto lost his smile completely and kissed Ryu before putting him back in his cradle. "Mom, what's wrong?" said Itachi while doing the same. "Nothing, it's just that there are people I miss a lot," he said, standing above the cradle and looking at Ryu, who was crabbing one of his fingers. "Then why don't you write to them? I'm sure they will be happy," proposed Itachi. "It's not so easy. If I write to them they will believe that I would have been forced to do it. For them, Akatsuki kidnapped me," Naruto explained, playing with Ryu. "Then, why don't you go see them?" Itachi asked. "If I go, they won't let me come back here. It's not that I haven't searched for a solution, but I can't find one. I want to say to Tsunade Ba-chan and Jiraiya that I'm alive and all right. Jiraiya must have found my blood and Tsunade must have punched him to death," he said with a sad smile. Just imagining the scene made him laugh. How he missed their pointless fight over Jiraiya's perverted book. During 6 years, he hadn't heard or saw one, and now, he had learned that they were going to marry each other. Naruto was happy for them, but he was also sad. He had wanted to spend more time with them, but he had to go to find his third child. He didn't blame himself for that. He knew he had done the right thing. But now, he couldn't go back anymore. Not because he hadn't the power to escape, but because he was Naruto. He couldn't bring himself to deprive his kittens of their father, and if it was true that the Akatsuki's leader was his father, then he wanted to learn to know him. "Naruto. Then I'll go give them your letter," said Itachi. "You're a good kid, but I won't allow you to go," Naruto said to his smaller version. "Why that? I'm strong. I'm mom and dad's child," Itachi said with a cute pout. "I'm sure you're strong, but I don't want you to go. There are people outside who are really dangerous and I don't want to lose you again. I will find a way to tell them I'm alive. Don't worry and promise me to not go on your own," Naruto said. "I promise, but you have to promise me to listen to Grandfather Minato and his story. I'm sure Grandfather Kyuubi will explain some things to you too. I want to meet Grandfather Kyuubi too," Itachi said. Naruto just smiled, even if a hint of sadness could be seen. He knew he had to listen to what this man had to say, but if he was really his father, then what did he have to curse him when he had sealed Kyuubi inside of him? Naruto wanted to know, but he wanted to know what Tsunade and Jiraiya had to say about that. Naruto had decided. After have listened to this man's story, he will send one of his caged Bushin to talk to Jiraiya and Tsunade. He was just hoping that Sasuke or Orochimaru wouldn't be in the way. He will know it after all. Minato had finally let go of Itachi's neck and was pouting in a corner like a little child. Who would have think that the leader of the Akatsuki was in fact a big child? Itachi left the dining room and went to see his son and Naruto. When he had arrived, he had heard some of their conversation but didn't mind. He understood that Naruto wanted to reassure the only family he had known so far. Itachi knocked to the door and entered. He saw Itachi with a big smile, and the twins waved happily their little arms toward their father. Itachi closed the distance and took Ryu in his arms. The little kid was looking at him with a big smile that Uchiha never showed. Never before you could have seen an Uchiha smiled like that. They were Ice King after all. Naruto took Kira and Itachi smiled. "Nay, I want to go outside. Onagai," Itachi said with big puppy eyes. "Do you want to go too, Naruto?" Itachi asked. "Why not? Fresh air won't kill me," Naruto answered. Itachi ran toward the door with an idea and took off to fetch his grandfather. "Don't you fear that I may run away?" Naruto asked, leaving the room. "I know you won't do anything foolish. You won't give up our children," Itachi answered while walking by his side. Naruto didn't answer. Itachi was right. He would never give up on his children, and he didn't know where he was either, so he couldn't go anywhere. They made it outside and found Itachi playing with Minato. Kisame, Sasori and Zetsu were there too. Kakuzu was always with Hidan, asleep. Tobi and Deidara was unable to move due to their last night. Naruto sat on a bench with Kira in his arms. Itachi came fetch his father, and his grandfather took care of Ryu and sat next to Naruto. Itachi, Itachi, Sasori, Kisame and Zetsu left them alone and entered the forest to not disturb them. Silence took place for a long time between Naruto and Minato. Ryu was half asleep and Kira was playing with the necklace Tsunade had gave to Naruto. "I'm sorry to have told you things so directly. I only thought of myself. I'm sorry," Minato said nervously. "I'm sorry too. It's just that I always thought that my parents didn't wanted me because of what people accused me to have done. I grew up thinking I was all alone. I only learned what a real family was when Jiraiya and Tsunade had appeared in my life. Naruto explained. Your mother died giving you birth. Minato said. Then I really killed someone. Don't say that. Your mother was well aware of the fact that she was going to die when you will be born. She just wanted to have you and I agreed with her. At that time I was thinking that it will be just the two of us with your mother living inside our heart. But Kyuubi appeared and all changed. That night you was born, your mother died and you nearly died too. This night a man summoned Kyuubi to take over Konoha and became Hokage instead of me. But he hadn't expected that Kyuubi had his own will. That man lost all of his chakra and couldn't send Kyuubi back. Kyuubi became crazy of anger when he hadn't the possibility to go back to where he belonged. I met him and I made a pact with him. If he agreed to be seal in you to save your life, I would do all I could to find a way to send him back. But the sealing process was far more complicated than I had expected it and I lost nearly all of my chakra. I was half dead and you were crying. Before that, I had told the third Hokage that I wanted you to be seen as a hero. I would never had imagined that the village I was dying for will be treating you like that. Minato explained with a sad voice. What happened to you? Why are you still alive? Naruto asked, trying to hold back his tears. Toby found me. I'll tell you, but promise me to keep it for you. Toba's real name is Uchiha